Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to join this afternoon's Learning Lunch. Thank you so much for the invitation. So, as Leslie mentioned, my name is Holly Cardozo. I'm the Marketing Specialist over at SAI Global, and I will just do a quick overview of who we are. Okay. So SAI Global is a professional services company. Our assurance services division helps organizations to manage risk, achieve process or product certification, and drive improvement by providing learning or training, registration audits, certification, and of course, supplier management programs, all with the aim of improving business performance. We were founded in 1922, based in Australia. We are listed on the Australian Stock Exchange with about $1 billion market cap. We are the largest registrar in North America with over 14,000 registrations and over 60,000 registrations globally. We have a global presence with clients in over 120 countries, including over 500 auditors in North America and about 1,600 plus globally. And so, and the last point I'll just hear, we're very pleased to note that we have a customer survey result, satisfaction result of 94%, always endeavoring to improve that, but we're very proud of that. This slide just depicts our global location. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, SAI Global has a regional representation, not just globally, but across North, Central, and South America. Our global accreditations, we have a number of them, including, we've got a number of logos on here, SEC, ANAB, a number of other ones as well. With respect to pre-certification support services, we have a number of learning and training opportunities to help you with your journey, and these include a number of different channels. Free webinars or on-demand webinars, including topics such as SQF, GFSI, and FSMA. We have public training or classroom training, more well-known classes, including implementation of SQF systems, HACCP, SQF internal auditor, and as well as an advanced practitioner course. And of course, in-house training courses. These are really catered to your organization, include a number of different topics, including but not limited to the ones that you see on your screen here. And of course, e-learning courses. And these are a couple of the e-learning courses that we're offering right now. Principles and applications of HACCP, introduction and refresher to HACCP food safety systems, root cause analysis, and of course, internal auditor training as well. And then on the consulting side, we're also helped to overcome challenges and help to prepare you. So these include on-site gap analysis to identify weaknesses, provide solutions, HACCP program facilitation, prerequisite program review and development, and of course, allergen review program and validation as well. There are a number of other services, but these are the most commonly requested ones. So during the certification process, as well as post-support services, as a certification body, we're able to deliver pre-assessment audits. These are essentially practice audits to help with the non-conformities and to prepare, as well as admin support on the SQF assessment database. We're always helpful to help support you there as well. And of course, we invite you to view our resource library. There are a number of different resources that we offer, as I mentioned, on-demand webinars. There's also white papers as well. We have one specifically on corrective action, preventive action, or CAPA. We have a white paper, and the link is on your screen here as well. And then, of course, we're always active on social media. We invite you to follow us on LinkedIn as well as our Twitter account if you have questions or concerns on the certification side or the learning and improvement inquiries. This contact information, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks very much, Leslie.
Thanks, Holly. This is Ann Cooper. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be presenting today a summary of some of the best tools in the industry for root cause analysis, and then we're going to look practically at how you can apply them in your food manufacturing or packaging manufacturing facility. So the objectives for today's presentation are we're going to define some terms. We're going to look at the root cause analysis process. We're going to discuss why do we need to do root cause analysis. We're going to look at some common root cause analysis tools from complex to very simple. And we're going to use the root cause process to analyze some problems. We're not going to work in a small group today because we are a large group of 244 plus people on the line. So we will look at some problems as a whole group and how we might drill down to a possible root cause. And I hope that at the end of this webinar, you'll be walking away with a toolkit of ideas and tools you can implement at your facility to improve your own root cause and corrective action, preventative action process. So what is root cause analysis? It's a methodology for finding and correcting the most important reasons for some type of performance problems. It's used throughout manufacturing, construction, healthcare, transportation, chemical, petroleum industries, lots of different industries, including operations teams, project management teams, quality control teams, change management teams, and lots of other groups throughout all different types of business work. It's drilling down to find the most basic reason for a problem that's occurring. Now, your third-party auditor is not responsible for identifying the root cause for you. You, as a facility practitioner or SQF coordinator or food safety manager, are expected to perform root cause analysis with your own team to specify the cause and the actions that are going to be taken to address the specific problem. And the final proof of effectiveness of a corrective action is if it achieves the desired result by fixing and addressing the root cause. So in root cause analysis, we're going to look for both unrecognized hazards and broken or missing controls to a program. And it's going to help us target our corrective action and preventative action efforts at the point, we hope, of the most leverage, where we have drilled down to the very basic cause, and that will likely eliminate the problem from reoccurring. And it really is the best method to find the most basic reason contributing to your identified problem. So before we go any further, we'll define a few terms, and these terms are also defined in the glossary in the SQF code. CAPA is corrective action, preventative action, and that's a systematic approach to develop your correction, your permanent corrective actions, and preventive action solutions to issues found to be non-conformant. A non-conformity is a failure to comply with a requirement. And a correction is an immediate action taken when a non-conformity is detected. It's also known commonly as a quick fix, but no root cause analysis is usually performed during a correction. My favorite example of this is when an auditor may write up a nonconformance for a machine that is not appearing to be clean. The immediate correction to that would be that you will clean the machine. But is that a corrective action? That machine is going to get dirty again, isn't it, in the next shift. So a corrective action is more of a systematic overall approach to preventing that machine from being improperly cleaned again on a permanent long-term basis. So we'll go into some more practical applications in just a few minutes of this process. So a corrective action, or you might see it listed as a CA, is the final long-term solution that addresses the root cause of a nonconformity. And this is usually determined by performing root cause analysis. And a preventive or preventative action, or a PA, is the course of action taken to remove the potential root cause of a nonconformity that has not happened yet. So it's preventing a problem before it occurs. And that's what SQF is really all about, is continuous improvement and preventative actions so that you can anticipate items that may become nonconformant in the future and already have a plan in place to address them, such as your HACCP plan. Your HACCP plan does that exact thing. It anticipates the risk and the potential for what may occur to your different critical control points and what you will do to correct them and prevent them from reoccurring. So I like to talk about root cause analysis with a metaphor of a tree. You know, when you plant a tree, you have to dig the hole 2 to 3 times wider than the root ball of the tree. This is true with small shrubs and big trees. So the roots take hold in the ground, and if they have been planted wide enough, they will spread out and form a firm foundation for the tree, but they will go very deep as well. So if you have noticed that that tree is not doing well and is dying, you may cut the tree at the surface, but below the ground, the roots will still be there, and they will spread and grow most likely. So the roots will continue to grow after the tree is cut. So think of the tree as one of your non-conformances. You can see it. You can cut it down. And when you cut it down, that would be a correction, a short-term fix. But the roots are still underground. Maybe you can't see them yet until you do root cause analysis and find the source of the problem. So SQF requires evidence of root cause analysis to prevent the likelihood of the same issues reoccurring and to push towards continuous improvement. And the root cause analysis exercise that you go through at your plant shows that you're being thorough and systematic in your problem-solving approach, that you're identifying and acting upon the true cause of the issue. So there are lots of different root cause analysis methods. Some of them are more complex than others, so I'm going to present a few of them. Some of these I learned in business school when I got my master's in business administration, and some I have implemented in the food industry over my years in my career. One very common root cause analysis method is a diagram called a Fishbone Diagram. And it's sort of a cause and effect diagram with many different spokes coming off that line to show different causes that might have caused that problem. That's very effective with a very complex problem or when you're dealing with lots of different departments that may have to meet cross-functionally to solve an issue. Then there's the Six Sigma DMAIC method. That's a 5-step method. And then we can go as basic as the 5 whys. So we're going to look at all of those in detail. So the Fishbone diagram is actually a diagram showing the possible causes of a specific problem. Very helpful if you have a complicated issue involving multiple steps, stakeholders, or departments. And you can actually download templates from the internet similar to this one that you can edit to develop your own fishbone diagram. So the head of the fish here over to the right is the problem, the issue, the nonconformity that you wish to address. And then each of the various levels will be the departments or processes that you would want to focus on, and underneath would have all of the different possible reasons for failure that would have contributed toward the issue at hand. So I'm going to show you a sample one. I hope you can see it. It's got a lot of fine print on it, but we don't need to discuss every step of it, but I think you'll see how it is implemented in this example. In this example, in this fishbone analysis diagram, their nonconformity over here on the right is that they had iron in the product. So they met in groups and they decided their components were going to be measurement, materials, methods, machines, manpower, and the environment. And then as a group, they brainstormed as to all of the potential errors or issues that could have happened in measurement and in materials and in each one of these components that could have contributed toward the iron being in the product. Now, not all of those contributed to this specific problem, but these are all of the potential issues which were gathered by doing brainstorming in small groups in production areas. Then after consensus, the group would decide which one of these would most likely, or which several of these might most likely be the root cause or causes. So after the fishbone diagram was completed, the group narrows down all the possible reasons to a smaller list of likely causes, reaching consensus as a group. Reaching consensus as a group when doing root cause analysis is essential, because working without other perspectives is likely not going to lead you on the right course of action. Because I've always found there's a lot of better ideas and different ideas when I'm working in a group to solve an issue than just me by myself or me plus one of my QA coworkers. If you get someone in from operations, if you get someone in from management, if you get someone in from maintenance, you may more likely come up with more creative root causes, but also more technically accurate root causes than if it's just you and someone else in your own discipline. So moving on to the Six Sigma Dmaic method. Six Sigma is a term used throughout the quality professional industry, and it's a business management strategy that was initially developed by Motorola Company, and the U.S. Army used it in the 1980s. It's used by a lot of Fortune 500 companies still today, primarily to identify and rectify errors and defects in manufacturing processes. Dmaic is an acronym for the 5 phases that make up the process. The first one is define the problem, the opportunity for improvement, the project goals, customer requirements, for example. The more specific the problem is defined, the greater the change and the greater the chance of obtaining measurements and successfully solving the problem. The second component is to measure. Measure the process performance. Measure your actual performance metrics for that certain goal. Analyze the process to determine the root cause for the variation or defects or poor performance. And during the analyze process, you may implement the 5 why questions, and we'll look at those in a few minutes. 4 is improve. So once you analyze the process, you want to improve the performance by addressing and eliminating the root causes. And here you might conduct testing, experimentation, pilot studies, something like that. And the last section is control. How are you going to control your improved process and your future process performance? You want to confirm that your controls are working by conducting validations, documenting your process and control steps, and keeping records. So we do a lot of validation and documentation and keeping records in SQF. So not only is this used in the business world, but it can also be used in lots of food manufacturing places that have SQF. So what we're going to do for the rest of our session today is focus in on the real foundation of the Six Sigma Dmaic method, which is just the 5 whys. And perhaps not all of our listeners on the line need to have a very complicated fishbone diagram, but you may only need to do a simple 5 why exercise in order to identify your root cause. So the 5 whys method is as simple as it sounds. You're going to ask and record answers to identify why was this item not conforming? Why did this happen? And then after you get these answers, you'll ask an appropriate why question to drill down to each of the levels of questions that you're asking. And usually by the 5th why question, you will reach the root cause. Sometimes it might only take 4 questions, but usually about 5 will get you to the root cause. So what types of why questions should you ask when you're doing this kind of an exercise? The question should be short and focused on one problem at a time. The question should not say what caused the event or what to do next, but continue asking why until you reach a consensus with your group on a possible root cause. So here are some 5 why example questions for a nonconformity that was written up on a door in an SQF audit. The door was cited for causing a potential pest problem for having uneven weather stripping at the bottom. So the question that the group asked when they were working on their corrective action plan was, why is the door a potential pest problem? And the answer, it needs weather stripping at the bottom. Why is the weather stripping getting damaged? And they found it's because the door is warped. Why is the door warped? Because employees are propping open the door. Why do employees prop open the door? To go out and smoke. Why do they need to go out this door? Because they can. So it's kind of a humorous conclusion at the end there, but you could see that this could have gone in different directions. The door could have needed weather stripping because it was damaged otherwise or another way. But I think you'll see that this root cause might lead you to do a few different things. Number one, you would want to replace the weather stripping, and you would probably want to prevent the employees propping open the door, and you would want to educate the employees on where they should go if they need to take a smoke break. So there might be 3 or 4 corrective actions you would identify and write and execute and do in order to adequately have a corrective action and preventative action plan developed around this one issue. I have one comment from someone that I'm echoing and not very clear. I'm hoping that everyone still is able to hear me all right. Please enter in the chat room a comment if you cannot hear me properly, and that's kind of crazy for me to tell you that because you may not have heard me say that. Okay, some folks are saying they can hear me fine, so I'll continue then. Another example of a nonconformance written on an audit was a problem with the knives. The knives observed had metal chipped off of the blade. So it was written up as a foreign contamination risk. So why is the knife a foreign contamination risk? It has pieces of metal chipped off. So therefore, where may that metal have gone? We don't know. Why is the damaged knife still in use? Well, the answer is we use it for cutting ingredients, and we did not notice it was damaged. It's the only knife we have. So they didn't notice it was damaged, and it's the only knife they have. So why do we not have extra knives? We will have to get some. So no one noticed it. And why don't we track the condition of the knives? Well, the classic answer, we've never had to do that before. And you might have noticed in SQF Code 7.2, there is a little more detail about having a knife control policy and knowing who's got your knives and recording what condition they are in periodically, usually at the end and beginning of shift. So why don't we document where our knives are and their condition each shift? So that was the conclusion of that 5 why analysis question. So they're going to immediately, their first correction would be to discard the damaged knives. The second correction would be to purchase plenty of additional knives. And another corrective action would be to set up a control system for the knives. In other words, there would be sign-in, sign-out. There would be sign-off on the condition of the knives and a way to take action if knives were noticed to be damaged. They would cease to be used and reported. So this is a multi-layered set of corrections and corrective actions that would go into your corrective action plan to prevent this from occurring again. And Francis had said, the extra knife is a correction to the real cause of damage, isn't it? Absolutely, yes. The extra knife is a correction or a short-term fix, but the real cause of damage is not addressed with just buying extra knives. The real cause of the damage needs to be controlled by setting up a knife control program, checklist, or some tool that you would have a way to have all the employees aware that those who use knives must sign them out and must confirm before they're used what the condition is and whether it's in safe condition for use. So that's really the main long-term corrective and preventive action that would have to be put in place here. If anyone has any additional questions, please enter them in the chat room, and I will address them as we go along. Then we had a nonconformance about the physical premises, and it was specifically that the ceiling has exposed insulation and cobwebs directly over exposed products. Why is the ceiling in poor condition? It was checked on our maintenance checklist last month, but isn't due to be checked for another 2 weeks. So they have a system in place. They're going to check it monthly, but it's already in poor condition, but because it's not due to be checked for another 2 weeks, someone did not yet report it. So they say, why didn't someone report it in poor condition? The maintenance manager is responsible for this and is on vacation. So now you're going to say, why is the maintenance manager the only one to report something in poor condition? Well, we don't have a procedure or know who to tell about it. Why don't we have a procedure? We never knew it was important, and he's always the one who handles it. So this is just a quick example of never, ever hinging your program, any component of your program, on just one person's shoulders. That person could leave. That person could go out on vacation, go out sick, many different reasons. I often will get calls from someone who's going to go on maternity leave, and they say, you're not going to come audit us during that maternity leave period, are you? And I say, well, unfortunately, the SQF system cannot go on hold while you take maternity leave unless you want to shut your plant down for the 3 months you'll be away. So, of course, we know that's not realistic. So we have to still have our program running when one person is away. So in this case, we are developing a procedure to teach everyone how to report physical plant issues in our system as soon as they occur. We're going to escalate that to at least 2 responsible persons, and we're going to have a checklist maintained. We already were maintaining the checklist, but we have to have everyone aware to report items that they see defective immediately when they see them to the responsible people. So most likely there would be a couple of different people they could report that to who would know how to take action. So here's a question about, would the corrective actions for this tie into the corrective action requirements in SQF of keeping a corrective action log? Yes, that would. You would perhaps have a physical premises walk-around checklist on your own defined frequency, perhaps weekly, perhaps monthly. It would be included on an internal audit as well, but you would want to have a fairly frequent walk-around of your facility for physical premises issues, and then you would also want to have a way for employees to report items that are immediately detected so that you can address them well before the time comes up for your next walk-around. Another example of a nonconformance was cited on the food safety plan, also known as the HACCP plan, and the nonconformance was that the CCP data is not being recorded after each cooking batch as per our written HACCP plan that we developed at our plant. So you know that SQF is all about saying what you do on paper, then doing what you say by us watching and observing, and then can you prove it? Can you prove it with evidence? So the SQF auditor looked at the HACCP plan, noted that you had written in your HACCP plan that the frequency of recording and checking your CCP for cooking was going to be after each batch. So the question then is, why were the cooking CCP controls not being recorded? And the answer was the cooking staff were told to check them, but they were not told to record them. Why were they told to only check them? Well, that's how we've been doing it for years before we started SQF, and we know we are always reaching the right temperatures. And you know what they always say, if it's not written down, it did not happen. In other words, there's no proof that it happened, and we have to rely on the written evidence when we do an audit. So why are there no CCP cooking temperature forms to record our controls? Oh, that's what we're going to develop. Our HACCP coordinator recently left the company, but we don't have them developed. So that would be our long-term preventive action would be we're going to get our HACCP team together, and we're going to put a form together that will record our CCP cooking temperatures, and we will also record the frequency that we will document those cooking temperatures, and we will re-educate those folks who are responsible for documenting the cooking temperatures to ensure that this gets done. And here are a couple of more comments. Does the log that I mentioned previously about a walk-around, a facility premises inspection need to be in an SOP? Yes, it could be in an SOP for facility premises maintenance. And your what I call a walk-around log could be named in many different ways. It could be named your premises conditions. It could be a checklist that you do on a periodic basis defined by you, perhaps weekly, perhaps other things monthly, and you would have written proof that you did evaluate those conditions in your plant. Another question is, don't you think that often there is not only one cause? It's often several events all together that bring an effect. Very true. There will be often several different deficiencies occurring that will cause that one event. So in this situation, with the food safety HACCP controls not being met, we had poorly trained staff who were not instructed to record the temperatures. We had a HACCP coordinator who left the company, and we had the absence of a cooking temperature log form. So those might be three distinct reasons or causes for this to become a failure. And then it became more of a major issue because it relates to the CCP data, which is very, very important in your HACCP controls. So then it became more of a major issue. So yes, that's a great comment that you can get several different potential causes and corrective actions that you need to implement when you do the root cause example, when you do the root cause questions. So another tool that's quite helpful was developed by Deming. And Deming is a very famous business management consultant, but he started out in America as an engineer and a statistician. Then he became a professor for many, many years and a great management consultant. And he developed what he called the Deming wheel. It's just 4 steps: plan, do, check, and act. So plan would be choose the process that you want to improve and set some goals or objectives. We want to improve adherence to documentation of the CCPs in our team. We see that's a weakness. So we want to improve to 100% of the time that we require that every shift log checked and recorded. We want to increase that. We want to improve that to 100%. That's our goal. So then you develop the plan. How are we going to get there? What are we going to implement? Well, in the previous example, we were going to implement a new checklist where they can record the temperature of each batch and the time that it was prepared, and someone's going to sign off on it. Well, if we're going to implement something new, we would have to do some training. So that's part of the do step also. Then after you've implemented this plan and you begin collecting the data on how it's going, you're checking and studying and analyzing the results. So you're going to analyze your shift checklist of your CCP temperatures, collect them and analyze them. And then you will, in the act step, you're actually going to decide whether you need to make any more changes in order to continuously improve. So a very important step in this wheel is the arrow between step 4 back to step 1 again. Because you never know when you implement a change how successful and effective it is until you check, analyze the results, take action if you need to revise it, and go again. Plan, do, check, and act. So this can be a continuous cycle for getting continuous improvement in any kind of a process. And this was highlighted by our senior consultant at SAI Global, Dr. Bob Strong, in his recent white paper on the importance of corrective and preventative actions and root cause analysis for the food industry. And we have a link to that if you'd like to get a free copy of that. So here's another example of the Deming wheel at work. Our plan step is we'd like to increase employee compliance in completing pre-op inspections. We want them to write in observations and corrective actions. They're just making check marks. Check marks mean nothing. We want them to write in what they observed or write in what they did to correct something. So our do step is going to be we're going to put together a small group, several of which are the actual employees that need to fill out those forms. And we're going to have them work together to develop the new addition to the form where they have to write in observations. And they can't just make a check mark. They need to write something in to show what they recorded, what they saw, and what they fixed. Then they'll develop the form and we'll all train each other on it, train the group, and we'll show some examples of compliant and non-compliant items that might be on the list so that everyone would know what to write down as a non-compliant item on that pre-op list and what might be a compliant item on the pre-op list that we could just say that was acceptable for. And we're going to state our expectations as a group consensus item. As a group, we're going to agree that this is our expectation, is that every shift leader will complete this checklist before the start of each shift, and then there most likely would be a post-op checklist as well. So we will check to see if the shift managers are completing the forms thoroughly before the shift begins. And weekly, management will review this also for trending to see how often it's occurring and how it's going. And then in the act phase, we will have some recognition for compliance, and we will have some consequences if not compliant. And we will revise the plan as needed until we get compliance maintained long term. So that's why we've got that constant cycle going here as needed until we get the desired results. So in your organization, here are a few tips on what you can do to get the idea of root cause analysis ingrained in your teams. You could give a basic root cause analysis training in your organization to get everyone aware of the process. You could include root cause analysis in everyday practices for everyday issues on many different types of paperwork that you do. You could probably see a way to build in the word cause or root cause so that we can dig a little deeper to get to the actual cause of our problems rather than constantly recording them and constantly recording the same issues and putting in fixes or short-term corrections that are not necessarily addressing the root cause with a long-term corrective and preventative action. So add a root cause column to all of your corrective action forms to encourage root cause analysis to be done. Teach the basic 5 why questions. Work in small groups to implement examples so that people can practice and learn how to ask the 5 whys and how to ask the right questions to get down to that root cause. And always remember to involve a very broad selection of employees in root cause analysis because, as I said before, everyone has different perspectives and different levels of expertise. And that will lead to more brainstorming success and more accurate corrective and preventive actions if you've got people from different roles in your company working together in a cross-functional way to identify and address root causes to various nonconformances. Now, the question has come up, are we suggesting that root cause analysis would be required for every finding in the facility? Well, we need to be practical, and we need to realize that some items are corrected easily with a quick correction, but many of your nonconformances should require that deep thought for a short period of time to identify the root cause. And as you could see from the previous examples that we went through, it doesn't take a lot of questioning to get down to the root cause for some of these, but some may be much more complex. So I know that SQF will be rolling out a root cause requirement in the field where you enter your corrective actions in the SQF database in the future. So you'll see that you'll see it more often required coming soon, but it is required currently as well in the code requirement. Another question is, do we have a specific tool or methodology to deal with microbiological nonconformities? Well, root cause analysis can certainly be done for any kind of nonconformity, and these structures that I've reviewed with you today are generic for use in any kind of industry. Now, there may be specific food-related tools you could use, but I have seen these basic tools used in the food industry with great success. So I would say I'm not aware of any specific methodology to deal with microbiological nonconformities, but that in most cases these tools I've shared today could be used in that situation. So in summary, root cause analysis is a systematic process constructed to ensure that your outcome is an actual elimination of the cause of the problem. The best approach to finding and implementing long-term solutions to problem or poor performance issues is root cause analysis. And root cause analysis addresses intermediate causes, but most importantly, the primary trigger of the problem. And when you get back to the primary trigger of that problem and you attack it there, you're most likely going to successfully prevent this item from happening again. So look back, if you've been SQF certified for a few years, look back and see what your repeated nonconformances are. And you will see some. We see them all the time. And in most cases, the repeated nonconformance, the same nonconformance as last year's audit, could have likely been prevented from reoccurring if root cause analysis was done, understood, implemented, and documented, and revisited from time to time to remind folks that this is why we do it this way, is because we had the nonconformance last year, we found this gap in our system, and we have this control in place, and revisit it to make sure it is still working and effective. And then this question is, do you meet daily or do you set up a specific time to meet for RCA analysis? Whatever works for you, Oscar. You can have a team that discusses issues found at the end of the day or the beginning of the next day. And if you discuss issues found, it's great to have a quick brainstorming session about what do you think the root cause is versus others in your group. The more often you do this kind of short exercise, the more ingrained and ordinary it will become as a matter of everyday work. If you reserve root cause analysis for a special occasion, then people might not remember to implement it in their everyday work. So I would suggest using short exercises of root cause analysis more frequently than not so that it becomes an everyday practice. And you would be amazed at the great ideas and the root causes that perhaps line workers can identify on your production lines that you might not think of if you're not working on that line 8 hours a day. So make sure to involve the doers of the task as well as the managers of the task so you can get those great heads together thinking and working together with their expertise to address and solve root cause. And another great comment is that the effectiveness of root cause analysis and corrective action and preventative action comes down to management commitment. Yes, it does. And if your management buys into the idea of the importance of doing root cause analysis and incorporating it into your food safety plans and your corrective action plans, then you will have a lot of success if management will support you and commit to this as a company. Another question comes in. Currently, we are recording all root cause analyses currently being done in response to food safety and or customer complaints. Are you expanding this to include operational failures such as mechanical? Absolutely. I would say that we should be doing these types of exercises of root cause analysis for any nonconformity that we find where we find this is necessary and helpful to do. And document that you did it, and document what your finding and your conclusion was of the root cause analysis exercise so that you can document that you did go through that extra step to think about all the other factors that may have caused this nonconformity, and that you documented your group agreed that the root cause was XYZ. Document it and say, here's our plan to address this root cause, and here are all of the steps we're going to take. Maybe it's 3 or 4 things you have to do to address that one root cause. Maybe it's only one. But by writing it down, there's a history now formed in your corrective action plan and in your records at your company. So if someone new comes in on your team next week, they can see what was found, what was done, so that if something similar comes up, they'll know what steps you went through. And then my last slide is some additional resources for you. I mentioned before the Food Safety White Paper by Dr. Bob Strong from SAI Global on the importance of corrective action, preventative action, and root cause analysis for the food industry. And there is a link to this paper at www.saiglobal.com. Also, on the internet, I found BillWilson.net has a good paper and set of tools on root cause analysis. And then I belong to the American Society for Quality. And for a very nominal fee, I think it was $15, I purchased the ASQ Pocket Guide to Root Cause Analysis. The only problem there, it doesn't really fit in your pocket. It's over 100 pages long, but it is a quick guide to implementing root cause analysis. And that's available online at www.asq.org. And then I took some of the diagrams and tools from the Quality Toolbox, also at the ASQ Quality Press. So that concludes my presentation for today. And I would just urge you to go back to your team that manages your SQF and food safety systems and say, are we just managing our problems, or are we addressing them at the root cause and preventing our problems from reoccurring? So I hope I've stimulated your thinking along the lines of how to do root cause analysis and what tools are available and how to implement them in your business, in the food industry. So we can open up the floor now for questions. If anyone has any additional questions, please type them in the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer them. And then we'll be turning over the meeting to Christy Gerswinski from SQFI. The question has come up, are we going to be sending the presentation to all participants? The presentation is being recorded and will go up to the SQFI.com website. I believe they said within the next 10 days to 2 weeks, and it will be available, yes. Can we see the slide for the 5 whys again? Certainly. I'll go back. Here are some various examples of the 5 why questions. Didn't know which specific slide you wanted to see about the 5 whys. They're basically just taking a nonconformance and coming up with a drill-down set of questions that's going to help you determine why is this a problem and why is the item in this condition, why did it happen, and keep asking why after each one of your questions gets answered. And that will usually lead you to the conclusion of what steps you need to take to implement an effective CAPA program to prevent this from reoccurring. All right, what other questions do you have? For people that would like to purchase the pocket guide, that's called the ASQ Pocket Guide to Root Cause Analysis from the ASQ Quality Press, and you would go to www.asq.org and look at their library of tools available for sale, and I downloaded it electronically. You can probably also purchase a hard copy, I would imagine, as well. Francis would like to know, can we start with the Fishbone Diagram, also called Ishikawa, to find the main causes and then lead 5 why for each cause? Yes, Francois, that is a very good technique to use. So if you are developing a Fishbone Diagram, and your team has identified all of these potential components that may have led to this problem of the iron in the product, you could ask the 5 whys to determine whether or not these would be viable solutions to your issue. So obviously there were probably 20 issues here identified: materials, methods, measurement, environment, manpower, and machines. But we may have done some more questioning to rule out some and narrow down to just several that may have caused the iron in the product. And then, yes, there are black belt Six Sigma tools throughout the industry that have a lot of great root cause analysis information in it. And then someone wants to see the Deming wheel slide again as the example, and the example for it. So Deming is plan, do, check, and act. And the example was we were looking at pre-op inspections and increasing employee compliance with properly noting our observations. So we created a plan. In the do session, we assembled a small group and we worked on revising the form and training folks how to use it, managers and employees, and showed them examples of compliant items and non-compliant items to put on the form, and we stated our expectations. And then we're going to implement and check. So we're going to validate that it is working properly, and then act continually to make changes as needed to make sure it works. Then the question about DMAIC. Is it really easy to implement? Well, the DMAIC chart might look confusing or might look complicated, but I bet you're doing it on a weekly or daily basis anyway. You did a lot of this in the development of your HACCP plan. Think about if you're rolling out a production plan for a new product. You're going to be doing these steps in many times for various tasks in your industry. You're going to be defining a project or defining a variable that we want to control. We're going to measure it. What's it doing now? What kind of variance are we getting? And we're going to analyze our data and modify as needed until we get the improvements in place that we are striving for. And we always want to document and control our processes so we can maintain at that high level of production. So with the several different methods of root cause analysis, which is the best one to concentrate on first? That's a great question. I like to start off simple, and I like to go with just the 5 whys. I think the 5 whys are very applicable to our field. I think they are very easy to implement. You don't really need a lot of expertise to start asking the question why. And by asking an open-ended question like why, you're going to get many more beneficial pieces of data than you would asking other types of questions that don't contain why. So a closed type of question would be a question that can be answered with yes or no. But an open-ended question like, why do you do it that way? Nobody can answer that with a yes or no. They have to give you the specific information, which leads you down the path to addressing the root cause of your issues. So I would say 5 whys method is the one I would start with first because it zeroes in a very simple process on how to identify the root cause of an issue. All right, well, I'm not hearing any more questions currently. You can keep typing in the chat room box, but I think Christy Gerswinski was going to close things up today, talking about some of the upcoming SQF training and different events going on at SQF. Christy?
Thanks, Ann. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for this fantastic presentation. I won't take up too much more of our attendees' time, but I wanted to go over some, just real quickly, 4 slides for me. But let's thank Ann for her fabulous presentation. I have to say I really enjoyed this, and as I was sitting in on her presentation at the SQF conference, I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. I really would like to see Ann do this presentation during one of our learning lunches. So I really appreciate her doing this presentation. As you can see from the slide background, this is the presentation she presented at the conference, and this is an example of one of the presentations that you would see at the conference coming up. So again, I should introduce myself. I'm Christy Grzywinski, Senior Technical Manager with SQFI. I work as part of the technical team who maintains the SQF standard. And I wanted to show real quick, if I could, if you hang in there, she did this, not this one, I think it's the next one. This example. Oh, this one. It seems very, very simple to me, but it just said so much, and it answers a lot of questions that you all had. You know, doesn't this bring up a lot of symptoms? You know, a lot of causes. But I think what we're getting at here with the 5 whys is yeah, sure, we found out right away that they don't have documents to record this on. They don't have a batch sheet to record this on. So you might have stopped right there. You're like, oh, well, we just don't have a form. Let's just create a form. But what you're doing is just correcting or putting in place a correction for just a symptom of the problem. And then you take the next step and you dive down and you find out that the staff were never told to record the temperatures or the CCP data. So then again, if you had stopped there, you would have just simply trained the staff, but you wouldn't have continued on to find out what the true root cause of the issue was. And what they found out is that the coordinator left. Well, let's look at the bigger picture here. Let's say, for example, that the SQF practitioner may have been the HACCP coordinator, and she left, and she was never replaced. And that's certainly a far more bigger root cause than, let's say, our first example of just creating a log. So you're getting down to that deep root cause. And if we look in the code at 2.5.5.1, so Module 2, 2.5.5.1, and a root cause analysis is a part of your corrective and preventative action. So not just putting in a correction, and putting in a true corrective action, which is you have delved down into the root cause of the issue. So it reads, the responsibility and methods outlining how corrections and corrective actions are investigated, resolved, managed, and controlled, including the identification of the root cause and resolution of the noncompliance. And that could be either on your certification audit or your own internal audit, shall be documented and implemented. So a root cause analysis is part of what you should be doing as part of your SQF plan. And we find the reason why we had Ann talk about this is that a lot of sites are not doing a root cause analysis, and this is something that's going to be a focus for us in the upcoming year and into the future. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Here's Ann's information one more time. I thought I'd put that on there in case you have more questions. Let me go into our events, some events that are coming up. Get your pens ready. Write this down. The SQF International Conference is coming up in November, and it's going to be in Indianapolis, Indiana, in November 3rd through 5th at the JW Marriott, a gorgeous brand new hotel in downtown Indianapolis. And hopefully that this is a nice, easy location for you to get to. I'm based in Chicago, so it's actually a quick 3-hour drive for me. It's a fantastic conference, I have to say. The conference rating from the 2014 conference, 4.57 out of 5.0. So highly rated across the board in terms of our education program, our vendors, the hotel, the meeting room. Our team really does a great job. And we have a committee made up, and you can see the list of the committee members on the conference website, is made up of people just just like you, people that are manufacturers, producers within the industry, and they have input into the conference and what matters most to them. And you, too, have a voice in what is presented at this conference. Our call for proposals is now open. Please go to the conference website, s2fi.com or s2fconference.com, or you can click through it from the S2F website. So s2fconference.com. Registration is now open. So the hotel tends to fill up fast. So maybe make your hotel reservation now. And if you still need some time to get approval for registration for the conference, at least you have the hotel room, right? S2fconference.com. Go ahead and register right now. The call for proposals is up there. There's an electronic form to submit a call for proposals, and there's more information on what we're looking for in terms of topics. We'll take any topic, but we do have a list of suggested topics that came out of our recent meeting with our conference planning committee. Let's see. Oh, and don't forget to nominate a auditor, manufacturer, practitioner, or trainer for the S2F Quality Achievement Awards. So this is recognition by you of, say, your favorite auditor, your favorite practitioner, your favorite trainer, and your company, if you want, can be awarded Manufacturer of the Year. So that the nomination forms are available on that conference website, so go ahead. If you know of somebody who's worthy, go ahead and nominate them now. Learning lunches. So I wanted to show you the upcoming topics for our learning lunches. So again, these are free 1-hour webinar. We try to do it at lunchtime here in North America. The upcoming topics are listed here. So we just did Ann's practical approach to root cause analysis. We're looking at April 22nd. April 22nd, Ron Vale is going to be talking about effective strategies for, Dave Evanson with Silica is going to be talking about what do you do when you get an environmental positive. This is something that he did at the conference 2 years ago, and it's another big topic that a lot of our S2F sites have questions about. So we're going to have Dave Evanson from Silica talk about evaluating and responding to an environmental positive. Ron Vale is going to be talking about assessing and fostering organizational food safety culture on May 13th, and another critical and key part of your food safety system. And it's another great presentation. I was sitting in on this presentation during last year's conference and said, hey, Ron, you really need to do this as a learning lunch. So he'll be presenting that topic. And then we have Melody Megayanis with Green Mountain Coffee Roasters is going to be talking about engaging employees through training on June 14th. And then we also have some upcoming topics: ethical sourcing, building your quality program, effective management review, and then we're going to do a preview of the S2F conference in September. So jot these dates down. Let's see, I think I have one more slide. Yeah, our professional updates. If you haven't participated in one, you might want to do it. This is required of all our registered S2F professionals, so it's required that all of our consultants, our auditors, and our trainers participate in these professional updates because it provides critical information about the S2F program. But you are, as a manufacturer, a practitioner, you are more than welcome to participate. You can sign up to listen in just as well. And again, this kind of gives an overview of what's going on with the S2F program, what sort of updates are occurring. Although there won't be any updates to the code this year, we're going to give you an idea of what's happening in the future because we're looking towards updating the program next year based off of the updated criteria from GFSI. So you can kind of get the inside scoop. Our next one is on April 1st. And these are all webinars. They're 4 hours, so there is an investment of the time, but you get a lot of information. We do take a nice deep dive into our audit data, which I find completely fascinating. So we actually pull the data out of our audit database. So all the compiled non-conformity, conformity data is pulled out of the database, and we put it into some awesome, cool charts showing you where the majority of our non-conformities are coming from, and then we also look at, well, what aren't we seeing recorded as non-conformities, and we tie it back to the recall data. So the majority of our recalls are, say, in this area, but are we seeing that actually being marked as non-conformities in the assessments? And it's also useful data for when you do your internal audit. So anyway, sign up for one of the professional update dates, because the information is really, really useful. I'm going to put Anne's contact information back up on the screen, and I'll go ahead and wrap this up and say thank you very much for your participation today, and we'll look for you next month. April 22nd is our next learning lunch, so we will see you then. And I thank you and have a great day.